having problems with. I got, that red hair extension thing that I've got. I can't do it. You're going to have to show me how to use these red hair extensions. I can't manage it at all. Anyway, so here we are. We are live, and this is the Excluded UK Hour. And it's my privilege to have with us two of the founders of Excluded UK, Sonali Joshi and Rachel Flower. One of the volunteers who I've got to know as a hippie cousin is Alice Bellamy, who's a beauty therapist and laser therapist and all sorts in that very specialist area. And Taryn Lee Johnson, who is the co-author of The Happypreneur, our book, which is available online in bookstores, and £2 of that goes to Excluded UK. And we both have a massive community of friends that have been excluded from income support, and we thought that we could maybe put in some things to it. So what I'm trying to do with this this hour, which is a long time, but it's because it's the most important subject of our Microbiz Matters Day, is the 3 million excluded that we're raising donations for all day. But as well as that, the whole purpose of Microbiz Matters Day is for us to reach by 5 o'clock 1 million helping hands, which is micro business owners helping each other. So it could be something simple like a chat. It could be having a laugh with somebody, making contact with somebody that you haven't spoken to for ages. It could be a referral, it could be promoting, it could be retweeting, it could be things that are small, or it could be things that are large, like actually buying something from another micro business, and it could be actually putting the people in touch with other people that they think may be able to support them and grow their businesses with them in the future. And anything that anybody does, they tweet with Microbiz Matters hashtag, and that's where we get lots of people helping lots of other people, and that's the main purpose of the day. But the purpose of this session is to kind of look forward, really, as to what Excluded UK, what we can do as business owners to actually help each other. And we obviously can't wait for government, but that's our probably a starting off point. We do have to mention the fact that Excluded UK have mounted one of the greatest campaigns with volunteers. What is it, 20, how many have you got on your Facebook group? 25,000 or more? Anybody?
I think we're well over 26,000 now, heading towards 27.
Absolutely amazing.
And growing every day.
Yeah, it is the most amazing and supportive campaign that I've ever seen. We certainly had no problems in support from some great celebrities like Gina Miller and Martin Lewis, and great politicians like Bill Esterton, and there's some magnificent people that have been supporting us, 270 MPs. So you guys have just put on the most amazing campaign on behalf of the 3 million to get them income support. It's certainly the best I've ever seen. I don't know how we've kept going through all this period, but I'm going to ask each of you, first of all, what do you kind of like, not hope for, but what would you say to somebody that is excluded at the moment, which will actually give them hope that Excluded UK, us as business owners, are around, are able to help them, and what we're all doing? So perhaps I can ask Sonali first. You've had a hectic day as well. I don't know how you all carry on. I only do this once a year, and we're exhausted. But it must be like this every single day for you at Excluded. So just kind of tell me, what are you saying to people that are excluded at the moment, to give them hope for the future and to say that there is help around to actually keep them going?
Well, I think if I look back to when we started Excluded UK, which came about around about mid-May, that was after several weeks of lockdown and several weeks of the effects of the pandemic being felt by individuals and businesses. And so when we set up, there were really sort of two key strands to what we intended to do. One was to actively lobby for support, which is the main thread of what we do at Excluded UK. And alongside that and integrated into that approach was for Excluded UK to kind of function as a kind of support mechanism. And so you mentioned the Facebook group that we've got. We've built this community that, of course, we all share really difficult stories of financial hardship, how it's affected us and our families and beyond. But we've become a very close-knit community. So I think on one hand, coming into the Excluded community, we are a friendly space, a supportive space, somewhere where people can share their stories and learn from each other. So, for instance, as and when there's any relevant news whereby there may be some help, for example, the recent council ARG grants, that information has been shared. People have shared their stories as to whether they have or haven't been successful in securing those grants. And that's really valuable information that we can be sharing with each other and in so doing, supporting each other. But on the broader side of that, on the more of the kind of well-being side and the day-to-day experience of being excluded, feeling part of that community, I think is really important. Because one thing that we've seen and noticed is this sense of isolation that people feel through being excluded. There are 3 million of us across the country, so everyone knows someone who has been excluded in one way or another. But sharing that with others, I think many people feel that sort of sense of isolation and find it difficult to share that. Many of us are in circles of friends where a lot of people have been furloughed and have been supported or supported otherwise through the other schemes or support. But then there are ourselves who haven't received that support. So I think that's something that we've been able to provide, and hope that that support is something valuable on a day-to-day basis. But like I said, the principal strand of what we're doing is lobbying. And we have made a breakthrough to the extent that before Christmas, we had our first contact with government, with the Treasury, and that's definitely a step forward. And right now we're building on that with a lot of momentum.
Fabulous. And Rachel, from your perspective, where do you see it? You've founded this fantastic campaign group, and it's different strands, and it has certainly built this supportive community. So the first thing we would say to people is join that community, get involved in that community and talking to each other, and the lobbying as well. Where do you see this, the near future, if you like, of Excluded UK's aims of when you founded it?
So I think it's really interesting that you started with this question, and given your experience, Tony, over the years, I know there'll be a good reason why, but you asking that question about giving people hope, I'm struggling to hold it together as I think about the right words, because that's the hardest thing for these excluded individuals and their families, is that the pandemic for so many of us has destroyed our hopes for the future. It's taken away everything that we held true and dear. It's like I always think it's like one of those little glass balls you used to have that you shook and then eventually the snow settled. But actually in this scenario for the excluded community, the snow just hasn't settled for nearly 10 months now. And the hardest thing that we've had to deal with is, how do we give hope when apparently there is none? Like, from the perspective of the lobbying that Sonali has just referred to, the most difficult thing as the months has passed by is that we set out just to shine a light on the issue. We just set out to helpfully say, hey, government, you're doing a great job getting these schemes up, but there's some problems. And, if you like, we can help you to fix the gaps. We've got some evidence and some data and As the months have rolled on, and then it became increasingly apparent that conversation wasn't taking place, that regardless of all the different things we tried to get the conversation moving and be helpful and consultative, it was like talking to a brick wall, to be frank. And to still be sat here 10 months on, as Sonali said, yes, we now have some momentum, but it's 10 months. Who in this country has 10 months in a rainy day fund sat in the bank account?
6 weeks is 6 weeks. They knew it was only 6 weeks, didn't they? Because they know the average is that, nobody in the UK, normal person, doesn't matter whether they're self-employed or whether they've got a job, they can only last 6 weeks before getting into debt. That's they'd know those figures because they publish them all the time. So you're absolutely right.
Absolutely right. And also the start point for the individuals. I think we talk a lot about justice and parity, and that's what we want. You know, no one should have been left substantially worse off as a result of this pandemic. And that should have been the base position. You know, basic living expenses should have been supported for those unable to earn a livelihood. The start point, though, matters, because if you already had maybe some credit cards or you had a good credit rating, you can apply for loans. Those people have fallen into debt. That's still not right, but at least they've kind of survived. Whereas we have a huge amount of what you would class as low income to medium income people within the excluded UK. So very quickly, all doors were being closed.
Yes,
so they exhausted their savings quickly. They had nowhere to go in terms of recovery. And you know, you're asking us as excluded the question, what hope were we able to give? The most frustrating thing is that we would love to have solved those problems. You know, I've said loads of times, you know, give us the funds and we'll administrate them. You know, we'll make sure that people fairly get them. But of course, it was never our decision to make. And that's been incredibly frustrating. How do you give hope when it feels there is none? So as Sonali said, the best we can have hoped for is to create this close-knit community, to be there and help in other ways, to provide solidarity and kindness.
Yeah, and I think that shouldn't be underestimated, because I think that, and this is just realism, so forgive me if it, you know, sounds a bit tough, but if I put my pay in 30 days hat on, I've been, you know, campaigning for that for 20 years. You know, there's 23 billion pounds that could be circulating twice as fast to micro business owners in the UK that would actually prevent a lot of those debt problems, because they have to take loans and financing for not being paid. Now, that campaign has got to the point where in 2021, and I'm not saying excluded is going to have to wait years and years and years and years, but I am just being optimistic about the point of being relentless, because it does look like in 2021 the prompt payment code will be changed from 60 days to 30 days.
Amazing.
Now that gets 23 billion in the economy moving twice as fast, which is a positive sign. And there are other campaigns going on as well that will help the Excluded UK group. I mean, we won't go into them all because that's not the purpose of it. But I think the point is that us as a group, us 5 at the moment, and the 30,000 out there and more people to get involved as a community, is that, you know, it's your lovely hashtag, relentless. I think if we can just assure people that whatever happens, we're not quitting on this. Yeah, we're going to keep supporting that community in every way we can. We'll raise as many donations as we can. You know, your mental health support is so necessary. These are all difficult things to talk about, difficult for me to talk about. It must be even worse for you. I even made an Excluded UK hat because I thought they deserved one, so I've got excluded. but seriously, I mean, I think that the you know, that is hope, that they're not forgotten, to use another campaign. Does that make sense in a strange kind of way? If they know that we all are not going to quit this, you know, and there are a lot of good people out. There's just one little story which Rachel knows, but the others won't. Is 2 very high-profile people contacted me before Christmas and said that and for obvious reasons, because they can't be known by anybody because of their particular positions with government and different things. And they said, we'd like to make some of the Excluded a really decent Christmas. I asked Rachel to get me the names of families in the different areas, and it happened. By all accounts, they made a number of families a much better Christmas than would have actually happened. And that kind of like is the power of community. It gives me some kind of faith in humanity. So I think that's the hope. And I really don't think, I've said it to Annika as well, I really don't think you should underestimate, you know, what fantastic resilience you create in the people that are excluded by you keeping going, and I thank you for that. And Alice is probably the best cheerleader in the world, really, with Tim and Stephen Liddle and all. I mean, they're absolutely fantastic, non-stop. How do you keep doing it yourself 24 hours a day? Because you've got a business to run, haven't you, in the months that you're allowed to trade? Tell us about that, Alice. How do you keep going?
Well, it's just every opportunity I get, early in the morning, late in the evening. They keep keeping me up because I keep getting notifications and I can't resist responding to them. But no, I don't need much sleep at my age. And it just feels really important, although I'm not nearly as severely affected as many, because I have been able to trade some of the time. That, you know, it just feels really important. And I never, ever imagined I'd be part of something like this. But as the time's gone on, I just get more and more determined to just keep shining the light. And I go in the group often and answer questions and try and cheer people up and just try and be as positive as possible. When they're saying, oh, there's no hope, I say, look, there's light at the end of the tunnel and we just can't stop, and we'll keep going for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's chastening, really, to see the stories every day. I mean, sometimes late at night, I find it, as you must find it, actually quite difficult. But it often is late at night, isn't it? That people. And if they can just talk, and if we can just find a way of keeping everybody talking. And is your business trading at the moment, Alice? I saw your fantastic, was it talk radio thing that you did? Was it yesterday or whatever? That was brilliant. You were awesome.
Yeah, 4:45 in the morning, 4:45. Yeah, no. I just tried. That's all you can do. I was asked. So I stepped up.
Was you able to trade at the moment?
No, I'm closed now from, I would imagine, until the beginning of March, and possibly longer, because I'm considered close contact, even though I'm safer than going to the supermarket. You know, and so, yeah, I've just cancelled or postponed £10,000 worth of appointments up until the 22nd of February. Which is hopefully when they might start thinking about opening things up. And I might be lucky to get 2 lots of £500 as an ARG grant. I mean, I'm fortunate that I don't have massive overheads, but, you know, my fixed costs, including my £260 a month PAYE, is, you know, is £1,000 a month.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy that they're not helping to cover businesses and people's, the business owners, fixed costs to some degree.
Yeah, and I mean, there are one of the earlier sessions I did was with some of my friends that have massive communities. From Ireland, they have a micro business community, and
yes, I watched that.
And in Ireland they all got grants, you know, straight away. I was in Malta before the first lockdown, if you like. And the first thing they did was got the micro business community grants to get the whole community working together to fight the COVID, if you like. And so, you know, it is, whichever way you look at it, just merciless discrimination. But it actually started in 2004, as long ago as that. That's when Treasury started treating micro businesses as deadweight, which is one of the reasons we created the Microbiz Matters movement in 2012, outside of government rather than being in the tent, if you like, where a lot of the membership bodies are, because we realized that, well, in fact, even during the pandemic, there was 1.3 billion announced for investor-led startups and two £20 million programs for businesses with over 5 employees. So that's, you know, tells you something about how they how they deal with it, and there's no other word for it. It's just discrimination. It's just abhorrent. It's terrible. In terms of Taryn, we've got lots of people and been lots of people all day that are in the hospitality and particularly our favourite, the entertainment industries and various things that have actually, and of course there's all this facile stuff about, you've got to change career or you got to pivot or you got to do all that bollocks. Excuse me. No, but seriously, there's all this terrible stuff going on, and people that have had absolutely nothing and no income support. What would you say to them about the difficulty of the fact that we can't expect something to happen from government immediately, but we've got to keep hope. We've got to keep doing something to keep us all going. And what would you say?
I mean, I think that's a particularly difficult genre for people to be in. I mean, as you know, so we're very close to me in that, and has just simply watched everything disappear. In fact, 2 businesses in hospitality and entertainment, and both of them gone. And sort of came out of 2020 with the hope that, okay, maybe sort of February, March, things will start to pick up, and then suddenly, bam, it's gone again. And that rug's been pulled out once again. But this whole attitude that entertainment doesn't count and they should retrain, I found particularly galling, because, entertainment is one of the things, music in particular, is something that lifts people, and there are so many songs that trigger memories, whether they're good or bad. They put you into a place. I mean, I imagine there's a lot of people right now that are taking quite a lot of solace in music. You can't go anywhere, so listening to that, watching, streaming on TV. So if we hadn't have had the arts and the entertainment, we wouldn't have had the streaming services or requirement for them. So therefore, why on earth would you say that's not important? Of course it's important. I think hope is such a fragile thing. I mean, I've been on the Facebook groups and reading the stories. One of the things that I will say that struck me about the Facebook group is how brilliant you are at making people feel good when they are having a good moment. Because that's something that gets me, is that whenever you go, actually, I've got something good to say. This has happened. I've got a job, or I've managed to change, or I've created a new business, and it's worked. There's almost an embarrassment that you think, I probably shouldn't say that because I don't want to feel like I'm, rubbing other people's noses or whatever. And you guys are brilliant. The community there steps forward and goes, fantastic. How can we help? I think one of the stories I saw the other day was, I think it was a lady that had done dog coats, or she was repurposing dog wear, something like that. I think she'd been a dog walker and she couldn't do that, but so she changed. And everyone was like, send us details. Where can we buy it? How can we help you? And for me, I thought that was fantastic. And I think that's what we need in the entertainment. We need to be able to find some way of supporting people, whether it is showcasing other streaming events. I'm involved with a lot of live bands and watching them do their live streaming and doing acoustic sets. And I think perhaps we have to change how we watch music and how we support people. But there is hope if we can actually just keep the message out there and keep them encouraged to keep going. I mean, my son's in a band. He hasn't picked his drumsticks up for 10 months. He just doesn't have the heart. And that's really hard.
I think the other thing is that there's a great amount of ingenuity. At 4 o'clock, we've got entertainment hour, and 2 of the entertainers there have actually created virtual businesses with help, because some people are doing virtual music festivals now, as you've seen, and various things. So they are getting paid because people's ingenuity finds ways of actually showcasing their talents and various things. But one of them is Magic Mike, who's a children's entertainer, etc. And of course, I didn't realize this, but he's been actually running virtual birthday parties because of course, people still have a birthday, if you like, and they still want some entertainment. And he's found a way of actually doing it. So I think the thing is which we say in the Happypreneur, don't we? Don't give up doing what you love to do, which is the opposite of government advice. Do not give up doing what you love to do and what you're good at, because that will eventually find a way into you actually making income, because customers buy from us as individuals, not unlike the corporates that, move slowly and have things that aren't wanted, like a high street chain or something like that. But as business owners, we can create something, which is why I want to go now just to Orbit again, because I'm intrigued as to, did you have to take time off to launch your business in May, Rachel? Just tell us about your good news story, because I think that's, it's great for us to hear good news stories about people that are finding ways of adapting and things. And I hate that word pivot. I'm not saying that. I'm just talking about actually wanting to get on and do something. Tell us about Orbit.
Yeah, so you've put me on the spot a bit, Tony, and following up from Taryn's point actually about talking about good news in the community. I don't think many people in the Excluded UK community know that I set up a business in May. Actually, it's not something I've been actively talking about, and the reason for that, no, it's fine. No, and you've really shone a light on something that we need to get better at. So it's great for Taryn to say that we are good at it. I think we need to be a lot better. And yes, I set up a new business in May, and the reason for that really is I've been an entrepreneur for over 10 years. So to me, in the wake of the pandemic, I galvanized into action. Part of that is being involved in Excluded UK. I had 2 other businesses to stay alive and rescue. I've got 2 small children at home. I put on my Superwoman cape and got on with it. And I think many people who are genuine entrepreneurs and have been practicing entrepreneurship for a while, that's what we did. And then, yes, I set up a new business and I've been building it ever since, but quietly. And the reason I've not been talking about it in the Excluded UK community is there are so many excluded who don't yet necessarily have that level of resilience. Yeah. And they've been forced into a situation where they're having to learn resilience through this adverse experience, which is very unfair actually, because of the situation they've been put into, because resilience comes from adversity. And one of the reasons I am an entrepreneur and I have that resilience is because I've had some very difficult life experiences. So I wouldn't have chosen to have those, but they were a gift in a way, because they taught me how to be resilient. Within the Excluded UK community, I should talk more about the things that I'm doing to re-galvanize myself and to inspire them, and rather than seeing it necessarily as something that might make them feel bad. And I think that's what we need to be careful of, that many of the Excluded UK community, if they carried on just doing what they loved and trying to do what they would do before, the reality is they cannot afford to live. So we also have to talk to them, and we do a lot about just find a job, any job. We know that that's not good and it doesn't feel good and it's really, really hard and it's not fair and it's unjust and all of that. But guys, you've just got to keep above water. So we have so many resilient people who are doing, completely random things just to pay the bills. But we also have people who've applied for 100 jobs, 200 jobs, 300 jobs and been knocked back from them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the point is about, hospitality and entertainment, like Taryn was talking about. This pandemic has been absolutely indiscriminate. Like, people that have succeeded in business, by and large, through the pandemic, it's entirely a matter of chance. They just happened to be working in the hand sanitizer business. They just happened to be working in logistics. It's nothing anybody was very clever about, completely accidental, and these are the core messages that we have to get to people. So coming back to, yes, I did set up a new business. And the reason for that is deep inside of myself, I have this spirit that says I will not be beaten by this or anything else. I will carry on finding a way. I won't give up, and I'll take other people with me if I possibly can. And what we've tried to build in Excluded UK, and will continue to do so, is that community, not individual, but, from I to we, so that when someone's having a bad day, and believe me, I've had many, as at Sonali, and I'm sure Alice does, but she doesn't show it, somebody else can pick you up And that is the
Yeah.
joy of community. That is the joy that, you know, business isn't easy, and building a business is never easy, and there will always be obstacles. But if we can teach anything in that community, it's the fact that you keep going and you ask for help and you receive that help. And I know you just talked about those private donors as well, which was amazing, Tony. But one of the things one of our members had to do before Christmas, Jen, is set up a fund, and we did that. I mean, Alice, would you just talk about it briefly? Because I know you and
Please
Jen
do.
administered
We've
that
got,
fund.
if we could do in this session both the funds that people that are watching this and that we keep mentioning through the day, because I think it's really important. We've said one of the things of 1 million helping hands is just donate some money to the fund that Alice is going to talk about, and obviously the one for mental health support with Excluded. So yeah, please, Alice, tell us and tell everybody how they can donate.
Oh, you put me on the spot there. I forgot to check.
Well, I'll
Is
jump
it
back in.
is it on the
can
public
put the
Facebook
link out.
page and the
But
website?
tell us about that hardship fund, how it was set
Yeah.
up.
So yeah, a month or so before Christmas, we realised that some people were going to really struggle to even put food on the table at Christmas. And to make the administration of it easier, one of the admins, Jennifer, set up a GoFundMe page, and we got a lot of money donated by members that could afford to, etc. And it helped out an awful lot of people. The thank you messages were just so heartwarming, that it actually made people possible to do Christmas and possible to buy a small present for their children, and have a reasonable Christmas meal. So I'm sure it's on our public Facebook page and on the website somewhere.
Does that mean you've decided to continue the fund indefinitely?
Oh, I beg your pardon. Yes, no. So again, we realised with the announcements that, and anticipating that the schemes wouldn't be opened up for any of the excluded, as they haven't been, that it needed to continue, because especially with the cold weather, heating bills, etc. And so that continues, and the demand is actually higher than for Christmas, I believe. So if you can find the COVID hardship fund on the Excluded UK website and either of the pages, and donate in there, it will be distributed quickly to people in dire need.
I think somebody will probably drop a link in the thread. There'll be lots of excluded people watching today. And just as you said, Alice, it was just so incredibly heartwarming, because ironically, a lot of the fund was raised from within or within the family, and we need to get it out externally, actually, because one of the terrible things that's happened between these exclusions is almost a division in society to the haves and the have-nots. Yeah. You know, there are people that have not just survived this pandemic, but thrived and done really, really well. And yet in this community, we managed to raise a sum of money from people giving, even though they had very little anyway. But they just stand by and let these people go into Christmas. The messages were so heartbreaking, as you say. They couldn't afford to feed their children. They couldn't put any presents under the tree. They couldn't switch the heating on. Like, we cannot, as a society, stand by and ignore that. Absolutely. We cannot. How can we go to bed and sleep at night knowing that that is happening? We mustn't.
Yeah, it's very frustrating as well, I think, for everybody as well, that it has divided the community, and that's a terrible thing. I would say on the basis, though, as well, that I think a lot of people that are ordinary freelancers and self-employed people and micro business owners, the smaller the businesses, as Schumacher said, I think actually the more just and fair they are. I think it's the people that have become like serious businessmen and things like that, you know, frankly, couldn't give a damn about the other people. But I think that the people that are doing and living in the same way to try and make ends meet, that are lucky enough, like me, to be able to make ends meet, I think the majority of those people are willing to to help out. So my faith in humanity hasn't been totally lost, but I've seen some terrible things, as you've seen as well, of people that just frankly don't care, do they? And
Yeah.
it's horrible.
I think one of the eye-opening things, though, about the campaign, which Sonali may want to say more about, is that that's one of the things we fought against, is the narrative out there and how the media could have helped us more. We have many supporters in the media, but actually because the official government statement has been, everybody has been helped in some way or another. Well, actually, we know that isn't true. And at its heart, this is about parity between taxpayers anyway. We're fed up of hearing about all the help that's been given to the ones that they did need to be supported. Of course, that was fair, but we need to focus on the ones that need it and have been left behind.
It's our narrative as well. Sonali, would you like to come in there and say what we need to get the narrative corrected to?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would just echo what Rachel has just said, in that we just keep hearing these same lines being trotted out by the Prime Minister, by the Chancellor, by government ministers. And that's what's being spoken to the country, that everyone has been helped in some way, that we're putting our arms around the country, we're putting our arms around everyone in the country. You may not have been helped in the way you would have liked. And it's this narrative that we are trying to break down with our messaging, by making it abundantly clear that this is not correct. And we know it's not correct because we see it every single day. We don't necessarily need the data to back it up. We see it, but we do have the data as well that clearly says how many people have been excluded, and within that, the extent to which people are being excluded, because there are a lot of people who have received zero, and then there are degrees of how people have been excluded. That also means that there isn't a one-size-fits-all approach to fixing the solution. But we've built that into the messaging that we are putting towards government and beyond, to say, well, there are workable solutions and there are ways in which we can approach this. But the bottom line is that everyone hasn't been helped, and that's why we're here, and that's why we're coming to you with this messaging.
Yeah. Okay. And I suppose from a point, and this is the bit I worry about and have done all the time since before March, because one of the things I thought the night before the announcement in March that it was all looking okay, and people like IPSI and various things were saying it's all going to be great tomorrow when he makes his announcements and things. And the business membership organisations haven't been too good, I don't think, in helping you overall. That's my personal view. That's how I've had the problem all the time of the last 20 years while I've been campaigning for micro business owners, about the problem that it's impossible to get all these organisations to unite into one common voice. And if ever there was a case where they all needed to unite as one common voice, it is this Excluded UK campaign. So my worry has been that when I found out that he was going to backdate for the self-employed that did get something, then that immediately sent signals that this was a real lot of duplicity going on that other countries weren't doing. And then, of course, we knew that they'd excluded so many people. But then the problem is that within that, there are different groups, like Forgotten Limited, for example. And one of my worries has been that governments usually work on the divide and conquer principle at some point in time. And so they're quite likely to pick one of the groups and give them a little bit of compensation. So they're out of the problem altogether. And I think it's going to be tremendously important that all of those people that, even the MPs and everything that you've built up behind the campaign are actually able to stick behind it, and we all make sure that we will not rest till every single person within 3 million has actually had some kind of justice. I don't know what you think about that. I mean, what's your relationship like with all the other groups at the moment? Sonali, maybe I should ask you that.
Well, I mean, we have the APPG through which conversations take place amongst all the campaign groups and with the secretariat of the APPG and the co-chairs. So there are lines of communication that are open, and from day one we set out to work collaboratively. That has always been one of our founding principles. And what you were just talking about in terms of galvanizing collective support across industry groups, industry bodies, unions, this is something that we've been doing all along, and we've built up some great relationships. And this is something that now, into the new year and the situation that we find ourselves in now, with that momentum, but with so much work to do, this is something that we really, really want to sort of hone in on and really galvanize as strongly as we can, because collective voices are always going to be stronger. So in terms of the other campaign groups, we talk to them through the APPG and otherwise, and we are always there to amplify voices, and that was our position from day one. But I'd also just like to add,
sorry, can I just
yeah,
just to say that, just for anybody that is listening that doesn't understand the political thing, APPG is an all-party political
parliamentary group.
All-party parliamentary group.
All of the different parties together. Yeah, sorry.
Party,
Yeah, carry on, Sonali.
Yeah, sorry. I was only going to say that in terms of all of the different groups out there, the different messages that there are different messages because there are different exclusions. And I think it's important for us always to remember that there are a lot of different ways in which people have been affected, and also people across such a wide variety of industries. I mean, pretty much every industry profession has been affected in one way or another. And I think it's important to sort of recognise that it's not a uniform thing that's happened here. People have been affected in different ways. So there are many different stories out there. But of course, there's also a very common thread that through one way or another, people have been excluded. So if we do reach a position whereby one group, one exclusion is fixed, we are here to make sure that we keep on banging the drum, we keep on making noise for everyone else who remains excluded, because none of the exclusions should have come about. And the central message is parity, and that's parity across everyone, whether they're in a group that something has been done to rectify the problem that was there, but the problems exist in many different ways.
But Tony, I think, this is a really important conversation to just pause on for a moment, because what we know about the pandemic is all it's really done is exacerbated problems that were already there. As you said, discrimination that already existed, inequalities that already existed. A passion for me is women disproportionately affected by the pandemic. And of course, now we're talking about small businesses disproportionately affected by the pandemic versus large corporations, which always would have had a better chance, generally speaking, to survive.
Yeah, the
and I think
100's been doing brilliantly. Have you noticed?
Yeah. And so, I just want to hone in on the point that you're making, that we didn't set out necessarily, as people within Excluded UK, as I said, to still be here months on. And we've really gone day by day and tried to just, from a very passionate, intuitive perspective, do the right next thing. And that was the only thing we ever could do, because the pandemic has left everybody completely uncertain and nobody knows what's going to happen next. That's been one of the defining characteristics. But I think your point is really important, because in this country and in the world as a whole, the only way we're ever going to get change is through collective voice, working together, collaboration, setting the egos aside. It's not about the individual, it's about what's right for the good of all. And I think, unfortunately, one of the big challenges we've had in fighting these exclusions is the fact that we currently have a majority government. There aren't very many levers available to us. We've set up the largest APPG in history with cross-party support from 260 MPs. But even then, they've not been able to get the Chancellor and HMT to come to the table and solutionise. So as a layperson sat there, you're thinking, wow, the democracy in this country really needs some attention. So within the Excluded UK community, I think what we're looking at, and you asked the question at the start, and what people are asking us for is, how can the voice of the people be more strongly heard generally day to day? Where does it come from? That amplification of the voice that Sonali referred to, where is the People's Union? Because this pandemic should always have been apolitical. I'm sure I'm not the only one who would have loved to have seen a cross-party alliance from day one. You know, this is an unprecedented event. Wouldn't it have been amazing if all these politicians just could have pooled the best of their skills and worked together? Okay, that's idealistic and unrealistic given where we started, but the lessons that we all need to learn, and hopefully the lessons that Excluded UK as a campaign can showcase, is there is power in the people. And I don't think the government did expect us to still be here as a grassroots, not-for-profit, staffed by volunteers organisation in January 2021. I think they thought we would have been divided and conquered, and we haven't, and we should be very proud of that.
Well, and I also think that the important thing that you've done as well I mean, obviously I've got some bias towards the fact of micro businesses because that's what I've been involved in. Particularly my heart goes out to where I started in all this was about making sure that people have got an 80% chance of surviving the first 3 years in business as new starts. And of course, all the new starts have been excluded. I mean, you know, how crazy is that? You know, but anyway, so what I did was that, you know, what I believe is that, like a little bit earlier, 4 people in the session I was talking about business communities, and we all agreed, which is going totally against politics, that next year we will have the UK and Ireland Micro Business Awards, so that we can actually just showcase real people with authentic stories in real make ends meet rather than high growth, high tech businesses, if you like. And that is the power of what you're doing, really, because you're actually, you know, if your message, and Sonali put it very well, is actually about bringing communities together, empowering was the word, you can continue doing that. Keep bringing us all together, you know, keep getting these celebrities that have never even thought about it to suddenly say, hey, that's right, I want to get in, you know, I can use my celebrity potential to actually get some change. And so I asked Charles Cracknell, who's one of the people we both did the sleep out, which was not together. but basically, I'm very proud to be the patron of the John Cracknell Youth Enterprise Bank in Hull, and Charles founded it, and it gives small grants to young enterprising people in Hull, normally from very disadvantaged grants. So an average grant will be about 250, but they'll get at least a year or 2 years or sometimes 3 years of support and help and mentoring from other business owners, if you like, and the track record of survival growth. Well, every single one of the 605 people, I think, just about up to now, that we've helped through the John Crack was excluded out of the thing. Yeah. And I asked, sorry about the glasses, but I asked him to just give us a statement. So since the start of COVID, he's raised 90,000 from businesses, Hull City Council, individuals and trade unions and charities, and issued 84 grants to excluded young entrepreneurs. Along with Hull City Council, he's donated 5,000 to Excluded UK in order to provide wellbeing support. He secured £100,000 investment into the youth enterprise agenda in the city from private sector investor, and helping to set up an enterprise academy for potential young entrepreneurs. And Charles took part in the sleep out and was delighted he raised £1,600, including donations from young entrepreneurs. Because, as we said, a lot of the people that are in the worst situation are the ones that are actually donating to these things. Young entrepreneurs that JCYB had supported. And he's recruited 83 mentors as a result of the story and the narrative that you've been telling us and the support of Excluded UK. He's recruited 83 mentors, a lot of which, he says, are excluded themselves to help these young people in Hull. So I just wanted him to write something so that we could actually pass a message to you that, you know, all your work is really appreciated. And, you know, isn't that fantastic? That's a city
Yeah.
that you've empowered to actually do something for the young enterprising people that have actually been totally excluded. It
That's
requires
amazing.
people like Charles, of course, to do the organising and the campaigning and the whatever. But you've actually done it because we're right behind you. So that's just to say thank you very much for that, Taryn. This narrative, because you're in fact in not long, you're going to be lecturing just
Um,
on this. On you're an expert like Sonali and Rachel in terms of communications, and you'll be lecturing at, was it Lincoln University?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
in a short amount of time. What would you say about the positioning of Excluded UK in the future in terms of, you know, this is taking an amazing mental toll on the founders and all the volunteers and various things, and we have to create a sustainable way ahead of continuing to grow, develop, get more and more people involved just to keep everybody going. What would you say are the communication must-haves to correct this narrative that Sonali says that we're battling against all the time? And I hear every day. I mean, you know, people say to me, "What the hell are you doing?" If they're enterprising people or they're entrepreneurs, they should be able to do this or do. You know, it's just non-reality. It's just awful. What would you say about the communications going forward? Have you any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, obviously everything you're doing in terms of social media is brilliant. One of the key things I think is the positivity, because it's very easy to keep pitching a negative story, and rightly or wrongly, people go, I'm sick of hearing that, or I don't want to know about it. Whereas, you know, if we're positive and we're pushing forward about it, and we're actually talking about the things that are happening and that we are doing, and that people within the industry or so the organisation are doing, then I think that lifts. You know, we started talking about hope, and you know the story that Tony's just told there with Chris. That's a massive nod to hope. You know, if we can do that in one city, why can't we do that in others? And I genuinely think if we could probably get that kind of thing snowballing, and then you start to show, hang on a minute, you know what, this is what we're capable of. Why aren't people above actually doing something to get involved in this? You know, I think if there is just constantly a negative spin on it, don't get me wrong, I'm not taking away from the negativity that is there. I know it firsthand, and I know that the stories you're seeing day in, day out, and I genuinely do not know how you keep going. But I think if we can push forward with a much more encouraging tone, then I think we'll get more out there. But I also think that, as you said, those of us that are micro business owners or small business owners that are still going should be brought in to help share the story as well. And I think there's power in everybody actually going, you know what, just because right now I can pay my bills, tomorrow I might not be able to.
Yeah.
So I've got a position to pay this. And that's why I'm so invested in it, because I don't know how my business is going to be next week or next month. You know, at the beginning of this, I hit a turbulent time, and I had to double up what I was doing in order to keep going. So if I can help, then I think the more business owners that can come on board and do that as well. And I think that's why something like Micro Biz Matters Day is so important. If we're just giving back an hour of our time or a tweet or a message and resharing this, that's got to help.
Yeah, and I think it's that, you know, I've been really impressed by you getting all these, you know, fun things, the quizzes and the do you know? I think that's just like so important because
Massively.
it's an excuse that isn't concentrating on the, the factual stuff really, just to actually release it. And we've got great entertainment. You must come and join us at 5 o'clock. I must mention it, 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock. We changed to Zoom, and we've got a fantastic. Well, actually, I'm fed up with virtual quizzes, but there we go. But I think it will be great fun, and we've got some great entertainment later on. Alice, in terms of I've met some fantastic people like Tim, well, both Tims really, and Stephen Little and all these different people. It's been it has been fantastic privilege to meet all these people that are just great. How do you suggest that you know, the volunteers actually, keep Sonali and Rachel going? Because I'm kind of like really worried about them being able to keep going through this, because we really need them to empower all these other organizations. So what do you think we should do as volunteers to actually keep the founders going and keep this wonderful organization going?
Well, I think we're sort of doing that in some ways without being asked, by sort of being on the page and doing the Twitter and what have you, without essentially with being asked, so that we can leave them to get on with the nitty gritty and planning and speaking to the powers that be and what have you. And I do try to, I encourage people to do that all the time. And I think that's the only way. And it's like, there's a proposal come up that might help some people, and people are saying, oh, what about this? And I say, look, just keep the faith, hang on in here. We're getting somewhere. We're making lots of noise. Keep helping us do that, and support each other. And, you just see some heartwarming things. A chap yesterday put up a post saying, oh, I couldn't have got through this without this group. Somebody picked me up when I was at a really low point and talked to me. And then I managed to get a job. And then I had a big problem with HMRC wanting money off me that I didn't really owe them. And somebody with the expertise helped him sort that out. And, he was just so thankful. And that's the sort of thing that lifts us up and keeps us going. And so it's just a question of going through the stories and just trying to pick people up rather than, just commiserating with them.
I think that's great. And I think the other thing is that it's the signposting as well. So for Excluded not to take it all on themselves, if you like, the problems. So for example, we're being hosted. I chair this organisation called Yorkshire in Business, which is, I think, the largest. It's certainly the best enterprise agency, and all the money we make from our 5 buildings of rented workspace goes into free startup support.
Tony, sorry, can I interrupt? I'm so sorry. I am going to have to go because I'm a class full of students waiting for me.
Happy back to business,
everybody. Really
lovely to meet you. Thank you.
Thanks for being with me. Thank you. That's great. Thank you. So Yorkshire in Business provides free startup support. Well, I know the team from the chief executive and everything. Since Excluded, the majority of their time free to anybody self-employed, freelancers, anybody that wants it. And in fact, anybody that wants it, they've been actually helping them get things like the discretionary grants or, finding different ways of actually getting something that's available, even to the point whereby a lot of people pay their like business rent in workspace, and rates are included, if you like, which precludes them from getting a lot of the different things. Well, they've unbound the rates element, if you like, in advising them how to fill out the forms and various things, and they've actually got money out of the councils, whereas they would have been in an excluded group if they hadn't had that professional help from the team at Yorkshire in Business. And I think that the more that we can actually signpost people to people that can provide professional help to actually find a way through things, or even if it's like change, I don't know about you, but I'm very much on the marketing side. It's always been my business partner, Claire Francis. It's been on the money side, and we'd have died 1,000 deaths if it hadn't been for her kind of thing. But some people are like me that are not that great with money, and somebody in about an hour or 2 hours of time can actually go through all of their expenses and actually find ways of helping them a little bit down the way. And the relief, of course, is absolutely fantastic. So I think as much as we can do with signposting of people that
Oh, I do that constantly. You know, so many people are asking about the discretionary grants and the ARGs, and I say, talk to your business hub at your local council. You know, there might be things that are available that you're not aware of. I wouldn't have known about the discretionary grant in the summer unless I'd been on the page.
Yeah,
because they don't blooming tell you.
They don't make it easy, do they?
No.
I mean, what do you think is going to happen, everybody, regarding tax to be paid by people? Do you think people will just say, no, we can't pay it, which they can't really?
Yeah, no, lots of people are having that conversation. Sorry.
So you go first, Alice. Yeah.
Yeah, no, lots of people are asking that in the group. You know, what can I do? And I said, well, you just have to speak to HMRC and tell them you had to use what you'd saved to live, because it's HMRC aren't answering the phones because they're so snowed under. So it's going to be an interesting one. I don't have a solution.
Maybe put something in writing in advance so they've got something to look back at, kind of thing. You know, in other words,
I guess so.
You know, just so that there's something logged, because they've got a strange habit of just fining people, haven't they? And rather than
they're at it already.
Yeah, so
we are actually calling for this as part of our proposals, and you know, you've summed it up beautifully, Tony. People cannot pay what they do not have, and the very core of this injustice is that these people have paid their taxes all over the years. They've not been able to claim out of the system when they needed it the most, and yet they're expected to carry on paying into the system. Basically, we all are going to have to repay this debt for the next however many decades, and our children are going to be affected. So for me, the core of the injustice is the fact that this is taxpayers' money we are talking about here. And when we are lobbying the government, it's because we want transparency and an auditable trail about it being used in a fair way. So when it comes to excluded people being required to pay their taxes, yet excluded from the taxpayers' money system, you know, we fundamentally have an issue that we need to help the people to fight. But you're absolutely right. They should be writing and putting that down on paper. And you have to remember, so many people are scared. It's huge. These are honest, hardworking people. They don't want to fall foul of the tax system. It's frightening. They think they're going to have bailiffs at the door.
Absolutely. No, it's very fair. And Sonali, just coming back to you, I just wanted to congratulate you on managing to get all the Metro mayors speaking in one voice, and I was on a couple of the things with them as well that you were on, and you hosted. Absolutely brilliant. But that
I don't take the thanks. That it was really Andy Burnham who galvanized that support, and was really instrumental in making that happen.
Sonali, you don't take the thanks for anything. Please just say thank you. We all adore you. Just say thank you.
I was there. I saw how you handled the whole thing.
She's awesome.
So it's absolutely brilliant. And I must say that, you know, if anybody wants hope out there of what you're achieving and the power of what you're empowering together, to get all the Metro mayors speaking with one voice in support of a campaign that only started a short number of months ago in campaigning terms, is absolutely fantastic. So I just want to thank you for that. And it's absolutely brilliant. We've got to come to the end, folks. I hope it's been interesting. I know it's such a difficult subject because it's not an easy one, and this is a cheerful day, but it's, you know, we've got to talk about the tough issues as well, because we all have to help each other. We won't get anywhere without us all helping each other in the future. And long may Excluded UK reign and develop, sustain, create more ways of putting people together. And hopefully next year, when we all get together, we'll have actually seen light at the end of the tunnel. And I want to be able to ask you now for one positive thing that you're looking, it could be personal, it could have anything to do with business, one thing you're looking forward to in 2021. I'll ask Rachel first. One thing you're looking forward to in 2021.
I'm going to be a bit rebellious. And before I answer that question, I'm going to say on behalf of Excluded UK, Tony, we absolutely adore you. You've been the most amazing advocate and ambassador for our cause. And it's a privilege to be here in this hour today. Thank you so much for setting up the donation scheme. Thank you for the donations from your book. Just genuinely thank you for being you. And it would be really remiss of me if I didn't speak on behalf of the community. You've given hope to so many people over the last few months. So thank you.
Very much. I'll drink to that later. Thank you.
And then, so I will say I'm looking forward in 2021 to meeting you in person. I hope we can all get together at a great big event with vaccinations in our arm and give each other hugs.
So one thing you're looking forward to.
Yes, meeting you in person at an event and giving you a hug. And hugging lots and lots of people from the Excluded UK community.
No, man, very happy. So now,
Right.
what about you? One thing could be a personal thing. New baby, something to do with new baby. How about that?
You keep giving away secrets on this call, Tony. Not everyone knows Sonali has had a baby.
Well, of course.
No, but nobody's watching now. We've overrun it.
Of course, that is what I'm going to remember 2024, without a shadow of a doubt. But I would say the thing I'm looking forward to most professionally is traveling again.
Yeah.
Because most of what I do is going to film festivals and watching films.
Yeah, I've seen that.
At film festivals with colleagues and talking about films in those kind of festival environments, and traveling the world and meeting my colleagues, particularly my colleagues in Asia, because we meet 2-3 times a year. I think that's what I'm missing most of all in terms of my own work.
Right, and that will happen. I'm absolutely certain of that. I'm certain.
It won't. We're not letting her leave the country. She has to stay here with us. She's not going anywhere.
Alice, one thing from you, 2021.
Oh, just having a great big family party.
Yeah,
And
a few hugs,
you know,
maybe. A few hugs, maybe with people.
Oh, absolutely. Oh no, my brother's got a little place and he gets a band there, and it's a normal annual event, and so we're just going to make it bigger and better and drunker.
Just let us know when to turn up, Alice. Just give us the invite.
I was going with my daughter this summer, thing, because it was I'm very old, but it was the 50th anniversary of the Isle of Wight Festival, Alice.
Oh, I know. I didn't get there. I had a ticket, but I couldn't go.
And that was the second one. That would have been absolutely, because I love, like Sonali loves the film festivals. I just love music festivals.
Yeah.
I can't say how much I've missed them during the summer, just going to music festivals.
Yeah,
absolutely great. Lovely being with you all. Thank you ever so much.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
You've been absolutely great. So happy Microbiz Matters Day, everybody. Take care. Thank you.